A very cheerful morning and Jai Hind to everyone. This is Deeksha, your host for today. And today we have among us a truly inspiring individual, Mr. Sandeep Dutt, the founder of Good School Alliance and Moving Forward India. He is the school improvement coach, author, and the educational reformer having the experience over 40 years of age. Through his dedication, he has transformed the lives of thousands of teachers and positively impacted the lives of millions of students, creating the culture of learning where schools become the places of joy, service, and self-discovery. So first of all, a very warm morning in Jai Hind, sir.
Thank you.
We are truly honored to have you in our podcast today. Sir, so my first question was like, you have been discovered as the educational trailblazer. So could you please share with us, with me and with the listeners, your educational journey and especially what insisted you to start Good School Alliance and Learning Forward India?
Thank you. Some years back, this was, I think, the first decade of this century, I had a brand called Book Cafe. I owned about 69 bookstores with cafes. So sitting in a cafe somewhere around 210, I thought to myself that I'm trying to sell books, but I'm not sure if we have enough readers in this country. So then I tried to decode why we don't read as much as we should. And I left it there. But now for me to champion reading and to bring a culture of reading in schools was an unfinished dream. And there's a problem statement which every school has: how do you get people to read? So I said, well, only if we get people to read can we get them to a bookstore. So I shut 69 bookstores. I said, okay, let me start with one village, one child, one school, and this was 2012. So in 2012, I went and spent a week in a village near Jodhpur called Bali and tried to understand why people are not reading. You are talking today that people are not reading. I'm telling you 15 years back, I tried to answer this question. So I realized essentially two things. One, we are not born in a house with books. And second, as we are not born in the house with books, children think books are only for passing exams and getting grades. So how do you change that? How do you bring about that change? And that's where it started. I used to go every week to that school in the village with a bag of books. And I used to just sit under a tree and read. And from that little exercise, one fine day, some teachers came and took some books from a bag and read them. That was the start. And that's how the story of my good school came about. From those few teachers, which added up to 17 teachers by 217 who became voracious readers. From 212 to 217, it took only 17 teachers to become good readers. And we defined that school as my good school. Why? Because the teachers read. Then what next? So teachers said, sir, what are you doing? I said, I'm writing a book these days. I was authoring My Good School, which is my book, which came out in 2020. Can we write a book? So I thought to myself, I said, these teachers have just learned how to read. How can they write a book? They said, no, sir, our school is celebrating 25 years, so we will write a book. And you'll be surprised. In about 6-7 months' time, the teachers came up with a manuscript of a book. So which just shows that from that reading of those 2-3 years, they actually became authors. It was collaborative, they published a book. And when this happened, I was invited to USA at the Learning Forward conference to share this very, very small story. And the second thing was, in this story, how did it affect the school, the impact of the school? Why those 17 teachers who started reading became impactful change makers? And when we did that, we realized in school, everyone succeeded. Children stopped failing. So that was a very empirical data. And then we tried to figure out why children stopped failing, and it boiled down to they started reading. So that's where the story started, from that one school. Now there was only one school in 2017, and between 2017 and 2019 there were 5 schools. In 21 we were just 5 schools reading, and today there are 57 schools who are reading. So when you multiply 57 by the number of teachers and students, hopefully some are reading.
What does the good school term personally means to you, and how it is different from the different idea of schooling, traditional idea of schooling?
Yeah, if you look back historically, the first thing a good school should be able to do is to make you think. And today a good school is defined by saying my children got the highest marks, so our school is a top performer. But the interesting part is your school may be the top performer. How successful is that child after school? What next? 100 students get 100%, what next? So we thought over it, and we realized that if you read, reflect, and if you're able to build relationships, you become a much better person than just a person who gets marks. So that's how we created a philosophy of reading, reflection, and relationship building, meaningful relationships. And we realize any school which does this is a good school. So we're not saying that we have any yardstick, we are not any media house that wants to do scores that this school scores more, this school scores more. For us, any school is good where people read, they reflect, and they build relationships. So it's as simple as that. And the last part which I really want to mention is, for me, scores, assessment are meaningless. So whether you look at story of Einstein, or whether you look at so many people, Tagore Sahab, or you look at Aurobindo, no one knows what marks they got in school or college, but they became what they were. So I'm not sure whether scores get you what you want, but if you have these habits of reading, reflection, and relationships, you can score in the value of life.
Your education philosophy, that is Forest framework, it is service, skills, study, and sport. Then can you please tell us that how these 4 pillars develop a child holistically?
Fantastic, great question. So human beings must learn how to give, and service is the spirit of giving. Yes, you must take, because you're giving, that's the other side, someone is receiving, and the person who is receiving is getting skills. So that is the taking bit of it. And as you are growing up, your body and mind should move and become better. That's the sport bit of it. And when you learn how to give, when you learn how to take, you become an able-bodied person as much as possible. You possibly become better to do your studies, and that's where study comes in. So to study well, you should know the basics of life. You know, a teacher gives so much to you, you take so much from a teacher. And that's how you study. So inherently, study is a give and take exercise. And that's why this whole story about giving, joy of service, taking, joy of skill or learning, being physically fit, prepare you to study better.
So next we go like I have listened you that you talk about the joy of giving. Right now you also mentioned it, joy of giving, and you draw these inspirations from Mahatma Gandhi's idea. Can you suggest schools that how can they prepare their early age students in community services?
Share your tiffin box. That's your first joy of giving. And you realize that's where the real journey of giving starts. That's where the journey starts about caring. So when a child goes to school, he comes from a very protected environment. मम्मी ने बनाया मेरा खाना मैं ही खाऊंगा. मम्मी ने पूछा तुमने मेरा बनाया हुआ खाया कि नहीं? So how will the child know that what his mother has given him should be shared? And sharing and caring go hand in hand. So if in a school you bring about a culture where children can share not just food, sharing thought, sharing ideas. And if you look at what we are doing, we are creating everything as creative commons. So that is our joy of giving. Whatever content we make, it's for creative commons. Because we feel the ocean of knowledge is where we have to learn to navigate, and knowledge doesn't belong to us. That's an important part. We may have added a few drops to the ocean of knowledge, but we are not the ocean. So we give what we can, and the ocean accepts everything and is magnanimous to give you credit, yes, if you call it that way. But bottom line is, end में तो सब कुछ समझ आता है. एक river भी है. You see a river story. It's very interesting. River also gives, by the way. So when the ocean is nearing, the river trembles. It breaks up into many tributaries. It creates a delta. It's so frightened. But the reality is, when the river becomes the ocean says it is me. So the river becomes the ocean. So that is giving. When river gives up, who are you and me? River is the law of nature.
Okay, sir. Right now you mentioned that how sports contribute in a healthy minds. So, sir, can you please define it? Can you please define it quite more? That how sports and mental well-being help the student to create their strong mind and build their character over society.
It's a very difficult question. You got me stumbled. So, if you look at a sports person, the main thing of a sports person is that he has to have a mental balance in whatever he does. He should not get stressed per se about anything that happens. And he should use that stress as an enabler to achieve what he wants to achieve. So stress happens because of two hormones in you, cortisol and testosterone. So when the cortisol level goes up in you because of stress, it actually gives you a way of becoming a more resilient human being. And it's a hormone which will help you overcome the stressful situation. So a sports person with a kick of cortisol can actually become a better, resilient, stronger person. And how he does that, not just that he breathes better or he has a better blood count or he has a better physical ability. I think what matters more is mental ability. And in mental ability, only one thing stops you is when you think, I can't do it. And sportsman's magic is, I can, and I can.
So the next is, sir, like many of our listeners are students and they dream of becoming the change makers and leaders of tomorrow. So, sir, what message would you like to share with them about lifelong learning, leadership, and the power of self-discovery?
Yeah, it's very important. I think self-discovery is very important, not just physical self, but learning how to stay quiet is the first lesson. Learning how to listen is the second lesson. And third, how to convert your thought into action is the next lesson. So all these are interlinked. If you can listen well, you will be able to create thought which is more defined. And my message to people is that first thing we must do is please listen. And today we are reaching a stage where no one wants to listen, but everyone wants to make noise. The cacophony, the noise has gone up so decibel that you just can't listen anymore. So the challenge today is more of listening and taking a measured response than reacting. So if you're able to listen and assimilate that as thought, that is the magic.
Oh, that it was quite engaging. So, with this, thank you so much, sir, for being with us in our podcast today and sharing such valuable insights. Your thoughts remind us that education is not about exams and marks. It's also about building purpose, compassion, and courage. To our listeners, be tuned with Speak.Podcast, the voices of Sunbeam School Ballia. This is Deeksha signing off. Keep learning, keep growing.